noticing that the previous time, I'm redoing these episodes because I was reading them and I only have so much breath and saliva and wherewithal. And also the audio's bad, or it's very dim because I'm doing it while people are asleep, I think, or while life is happening around me. So now that we have a, and also I was reproducing it because the affect of the voices of the version 1 of the text to speech wasn't cutting it. I wasn't cutting it either, but it was very pleasurable to read it. And so now we have an approximation of John Delancey to carry it with us. Thank you. Goes to John. I mean, he's not dead, but the person who's with us in spirit, and while still alive, and also whoever recorded and also created the thing that made this possible. This is a part where when very underslept and just pressing enter, and letting the story wash over you, not really noticing that a fundamental change is happening, and a whole different type of set of voices is emerging in a way that is like awed me at the time. I mean, it still does, but this is the first time in 6 months that I've come across this, and so it'll be new to me too, because I'm not going to be bending over and trying to listen to it, but not listen to it, but keep it, etc. I'll be totally listening to it like I'm an audience member, which is a great pleasure. Alright. Because, and also, I'm going to keep the first versions of the episode online because I need it to be clear that my input is very little. That litany of authors and lenses didn't come from me. I mean, it came from my author's note. It's doing these interesting variations on my author's note, which is like the core backbone of the story. It's what the context, it's what the service, the machine, the function always refers back to. So it doesn't veer off too far from. It doesn't become a B.C. Andrews novel. That's what I'm saying. So yeah, that's my preamble. Very little. I'm just the button pusher in this part of this thing. I'm about the button pusher to the most of it, all of it. That's it. All right, let's do this. Yoink.
Conversation #12. Uter. Wait, were we supposed to be here rather and learn anything from that? I didn't see any of us at those meetings. Calliope. Was it supposed to teach something instead of the exact same thing but different? Was the opposite point better? Salagius. Oh, but we could stay past my funeral. An archaeology and selfie filters following what unfolds through all angles. From every viewpoint angle while bearing witness each separate singular time simultaneously. Just don't forget it, M. I'd make someone nervous like waiting to flip an ambulance. Lights a red triangle painted on the rear right door. Otherwise in another city which state if any was just stolen, not to mention never saw stolen, still using the stolen now. And we go this way today onward, fast forward 2,400 days if they showed up for today's last minute stand-in replacement, close in assembly production, hold fire, black flag stood down America, rise of empire, old center stage, only leave America and show. W Europe, their army guns facing forward into these countries. 2000. Here another emergency. Where does my mind think I parked up? I tell anyone this just in the sight of head. Good point. I contacts a kind of karma moment, else ignore on faith. If that still makes sense, world unseen follows system, forks through backstreams, eventual fate reinterpretations, such good faith involved. But when the roof caved inside, holy fucking shit, what an outpouring of grief. Nash G. Where was my generation then? Schna? Hush now, sweetheart. Listen. Celiges. 4,039,504 days without anything new. So it was everything old you wouldn't ever remember. Would have been older than you'd appear around 18 with blonde hair. And I put in my iPod speakers out past the swimming pool edge to the canal duct, and they climbed out on deck naked, staring wide-eyed through sunglass frames at us working out music. This happened if there had ever been daylight anywhere beyond some technicolor haze. Nobody around could name an age difference at this point now, neither knowing it's something really novel. Someone sang in three-part polyphony, an angel voice light like an old piano, roll were a vibration over our swimming suits, kids watching with half-open eyes, all feeling something echoing under skins, most of them under the legal age to drive sober. The billiards had fucked up waiting tables, we all wore eyeliner made stuff back in those days. Anyone, eh? Then one see through everyone's double lens again, not noticing unless by chance close up in smoky club alley, and then nothing a mystery. Why more couldn't get lost in such moments? All there needed to break loose our insanely ironic innocent fingers flying off key. Life for hire signing onto this line. New soul track not gonna fit but hook somewhere. We'll start messing with sounds already. The drummer was into white noise mood and his cut and paste search till click down the right alley. Second mix does. And help much nicks sound okay, they don't need silence. Break fast there. Moment to let a vocal drone take you somewhere, not standing up like trees, hum water, too deep bass, big hands set free, ears growing nearer now, almost this soft launch finale complete with glow in dark motion picture into titles tinkle along, swelling with sigh of every sigh, rapture, good God, no deconstruction, yet first instinct. They do that somewhere else, then somehow disperse within several hours, leaving behind veneer of scarred feet. In old days, DJs wondering if they should fill a void they help create and cover of peer pressure, bring order among chaos. Who actually fucking goes there anymore? Where do you go? Talk of absence is curried with the appeal to limitless desire to hang out and connect when your headspace can't bear the simple effort to be one down. Look who you are now. Cleo. Imagine if they could have seen this day, they wouldn't have agreed. What might this world made by this team look like today? For sure. For how far is into the future I see everyone here too. For myself, maybe I would have really listened. Like we know he's dead now, so we hear what you have to say about it. Otherwise, it seems the afterlife gets wrapped into every meaning now from another realm. Who knows for sure which stories were first imagined? Is it an affirmation or an unraveled fable itself? Final spinster artichoke turning in last ever burst of life, getting his instructions back from Olympus in 20,000 years instead. Aeolian not Blinian strings. Schna, oh wretch, I am jealous of anything beyond reach before mortality's great undertow, but we're no longer unique, none of us. Nothing is inviolate. Remember my companion, even with the new faces of Alice, it matters what that night was doing behind those eyes then. Nasty. Time turns against all things by design, then by its own decree. We are wasting what little of it we have left here while trying to express this tale while evading the terrible thing, whatever it may be. We still have no names for most things, only timetable assignments and credits and second jobs. Though slowly we are realizing we can barely move. Sit up, blink, hardly take notes, let alone rest for breaks that already come in frequently, filled and were forgotten. My companions aren't complaining that we all get headaches, knees, backs. Cleo, dear to God's on. My Hades understands beauty. At the dawn of the Homo sapiens age, like magic flowing back into water, why should we not see the light down here in these dark years? What will we grow in that medium other than a broken planet's petals before a slow falling backward without sense? Imagine no limit but one's ambition unguarded. Reach through time at the level of physics as well. Returning to meet this era just prior to our arrival there, where the god Apollo opens some secret garden and slays us with its unexpected song. Our corpse mortal, so divine it did not know was dying. viewing the earth through a new materialist lens that seeks to deprioritize the anthropomorphic gaze, holistic, honest, aware of the tumultuous times, not without a sense of humor about the tumult. Jeanette. No, not any of that. Cleo, my love, please tell your precious shades otherwise, but he used to wonder aloud what kind of woman I'd been dreaming when I arrived with him as some sort of white cross rising at nightfall. How well could you interpret in your dreams something left behind for what century but did rise out of deep strata under the Pyrenees, that other volcanic area on the other side of a much grander mid-continent shield volcano chain several continents away toward the southeast, where both parents are fountains of plume, I heard and believe. So young in the volcano's mouths, which maybe you remember being once, I do not know. No, he was forever making me teach him words I hadn't spoken since my re-embodiment, but also so curious he never tired of any aspect of language. It meant everything to him, everything, but perhaps from this older AK, whose sense of timing when to bring things to conclusion had a wholly other aim. Even after they started whispering through the screen, telling us how many in the field were probably able to track how it ran through our conversations. Even once Cleo and I knew, now from an awful urgency in my man's breathing, then now would he insist, but did not need to in order for us to fall on our sides for so long into those incredible secret grotto pools, a world under the sea barely unmapped, as he kept getting lost, following up as if tracking new currents on his own terms. But we lay there still inside while more waves came flowing by the barge window, blurring to finally shore of sparkling diamonds that began falling. Pearls, yes, each successive crash louder on deck. Jeanette, pays it right to deny these crystals falling, whose cost became unutterable high far down its tube beyond sight, you think? Perhaps all paid, sir. Call out at last, who swam down that terrible black throat of sulphur after their plumed heads bobbled past amid silk-like beachweed, yet standing and breathing still. That courage is torn, alas, how poorly that snake slipped to finish as they thrashed madly in its toiling folds, though swallowed whole only too many. Weissingloff, instead, a dying bullfrog long ago struck mute out in forest under Banin, where Hollow Mountain stream once flowed dark about the heraldic buttercups. My beloved, must I prove by heaping proof it wasn't I cut all four strands as myself, bleeding away all my life's dreams when ringing echo back upon in great ripple eddies again, and I almost felt a sight tremble his hand's edges so lightly as if from not a death, but a newborn. A chase. We agreed, my words, today will be mine alone. Here in these notebooks. I hate stops a moment. Coughs lightly to clear his throat of residual mist from just below, and what is at this point familiar nostril inhalation, P. RUN juice is inhaled and replaces it with some notes regarding the breath process. An average human consumes 8 kg of air / per day while awake and resting through the course of any 24-hour period, with even that varying within population groups by age, sex, and also social status. My reading of the study says females breathe more deeply than males, as did also individuals working from fixed routine shifts compared to those engaged in variable laboring schedules of repetitive work like some are reputed to have endured for in one case 200 consecutive days without time to even wash. In those studies comparing Chinese and American men found differences, with Americans suffering higher lung capacity / lower breathing volume, as well in other studies depending on geographical location and personal idiosyncrasies related to diet, but other research clearly demonstrates the highly domesticated state of Western man, who in fact already live inside the Chinese archetype called as Chao Hung Roman 11. And our Tao man, having developed ourselves as a life all just to the presence of his breathing system right before us staring, Ashates now makes me break in one hand, still holding these pens clenched within each fist's grip tight in such a way how we stood staring unseeing at each other unclothed while facing one another upon the floor beneath a strong warm spotlight. The first time the stare of marble galleries at Chateau Versailles, here we could breathe them unflooded, we had never imagined. I regret only I waited till dawn before telling him was no more.
Oh,
He fled,
that's all then.
was spirited away. Alas, still must hide shame for surviving cowardice, his gaze dead ahead, untroubled even by the thought of the momentarily unreal possibility, some distant agency or mechanism already underway inside it, his name stolen on a stormlit heath, running easily. And much at least the most beautiful in the whole kingdom, now out of luck, well too far behind by only a few hours. Too old, what do they matter with his history? It was 3 years in all after the battle of Placida's breather. From atop my hands, curled under him as if chaste hands wrapped in bandages, but the wound hidden terror in one's eyes proves your nipples rigid even so. You'll smile through it later, can't not forget that exhalation must flow. In this last phrase I thought might turn out to be the actual text, a shades in handwriting otherwise indistinguishable from a piece of Old English script. So yes, I believe he finished something that night, then continued past any limit he seemed to feel. History being a torrent pouring onto the polished walls inside the prison, truly of ice being us like skiers being rerun endlessly on that inner slope, except all those poor fences clipping along without purpose will keep making just more to scatter around everywhere, us hanging from endless ropes and nets and tracks among which only very gradually I'd sort of fallen through gaps along whose bars only then dangled myself gawping, waiting helpless there, unable to talk or even plead, scream finally toward the light, making fists even bloodied for no better reason than each stroke somehow ground into flesh, new fingernails length off, and small teeth would break against one another, their impact split apart, lit into sparks, seeming the first part of each word breaking free even without echo. This shades what becomes of a life once words lie scattered away, they're growing backer. He blew away as surely blown off the stage. Like all those playing Dreyfus inside that movie theater years later, ling of silent films forgotten in 3 decades already by himself, looking strangely the day up my way near the great city where we're supposed to find something soon, long gone, 2 million years wiped out. Ashes choking me nearly the moment I dare wonder such strange human flesh might still be breathing elsewhere, more likely falling into shallow grave, piled up one layer of mud upon another, someone haphazardly burning in among all the dreck when come chance poking fire we'd built ever since. Settling for eternity first with only twigs of pure oxygen, out of breath of morning coldness raising I over frozen rump beneath an inexplicable tree without leaf, through whose endless leafless body one could imagine running from inside to escape that infinite cathedral around it. Somewhere among things this laughter / cries there, well, what survived always felt akin to riding the greatest current of your most evil dream. In fact, by then none knew, but it seemed reasonable that once my little swim into his ocean had come to its conclusion, there must not have been so much time to waste, which made no difference on the margin if the wet animal coming up after me from those depths. Coming after me first, for though he did reach and grasp those silvery ribs underwater, slash under that city, still raised himself between me and all unmindful of sniper shot he was reaching instead for, approaching, who I now see has left me forever, finally drawn into the essential, the marvelously male flesh. I held fast and surrendered not, could only scream at it, he shall go forth, for nothing may hinder you. Through time, this true was leaving him, which leaving and goodbye cried the gun, but done by then for no new. This current month, Dormar sees a mist of waking waters, born that one the water years. There are many today past, there have died. This once true is false, the vital that was then vile, since that has since the stain left of truth that lie I show too late, or slavery indeed, these are they still. The brains they loose, the ghost leaving. I remain witness, not see the dirty babes of mine. So from whence we would wonder went I where a swarm upon them brushed, such as never swam the waters. It came unto their souls that shone those of my dead, just whom these shades among we might live together always, will unto forever unaccompanied. Death to twines light and truth's blood, yes, bends is God. On one of the walls in her underground apartment, Jeanette had scrawled, God, that'll be the day. So much for that. Then she wrote, a new identity awaits, just the right time. What must I say to justify being still alive? The wet dead found each other only as members of their species, after all. So how much worse could this state be? Some being preferred for nature fit in, more irony or complexity to that which passes as intelligence when served in neat dimes of genes. That hair-fringed stumbling stone cold mankind. Why have I reached to grasp so hard those things? Dark green lights long seen, but missed these rains above the pool here. She surfaced, said again, arms outstretched, the hunger you swore was gone now, all over inside out meeting, no mask to break it barely, then of bones nearly hardly able, almost broken. The sky of these old gods, were theirs first, perhaps, never neither doves nor to me we recall them, peregrines not clear along, where bright flame swallows our swift moving slash, changing nothing safe amid their reclaims. When this, we ever nervously ask yet touch, oh hold, oh keep touch, hide themselves from touching, remember, no eyes raised at hers, grown birds, these peregrines rising past, through wind of leaving, which he departs. Her hands filled his mouths. What does she need so deeply saying? Nursed her dead, taken by water and breath, born light, your feathers, blood, mine hair, both alike wear white sash tomorrow may this mist blown soon enough simply rain, why are we these? Scritching, not throbbing to give off seed, slash already swept us up, be true, must break its hunger, put yourself in line and pay no attention to the crack of marrow striking surface, his own life inside him. Ruptured, wading up, shouting, watching she escaped myself, stepping closer, rippling shades against his dark seeping in. My question I asked, what have you in these sounds I hear? Oh, come play, see. There's another bird for all the trees my childhood can take. Your childhood took all its children, eat yourselves now while you have the chance. Cacophonous, her skin eaten down, her soul undone under wind. Who knows by sunrise, sunrise, and be noten, soon enough we become what has become not an I among yourselves. As, or I shall be part of, was she doing this among us all both and same. Different old song, new season leaves old blue days stolen away. Such strange forms can emerge to let this happen. If yes, one raptor, though less is much, and through world they enter, returning nightless. A room, a bright flapping hole under air, both worlds through they rose. How could this have happened somewhere I did not find? I had turned, not you, a bit of bone. Sister barked, a shouted, crack not birds here, crack as bread comes clean. Break better, break it where bones gone. Am I calling again? Words I screamed before last year's bird sank to lay bleeding on the shore, shrunk and sharp claws forked, then head around, empty flesh, teeth closed, seeing the dead themselves, rising wings, slanted, tired, higher seamed wings, oily rust, caught fire, slow consumed, lifted, silent, flashing, burning out. So must we every year drink the restless sea, wait then sing dark day, morning star, until all dies, turning toward earth. A rush of stumps, eyes widening, smiles, lines brittled, not fading, cut again, nor ever closed, sudden cracking, knowledge too heartbroken, blood dry gristle lies. Seek again, paths past, blast screams coming back now, at last let loose, bring fear, ride any ground, come dying, being built, something me, some whole new realm after mine. The possibility of transformation haunts any subject when no guarantee of stability can be assumed. On one hand, all signs point to dissolution, the inevitable unfolding of entropy across biological and non biological systems alike, life itself a crucible for chaos and entropy. However, from the same set of facts and limitations follows the potential for unrecognizable, revolutionary possibilities that might circumvent normal functioning through radical juxtaposition. While my heart raced to identify each splintery string along your skin's curved kink of damage, I feared that things were happening elsewhere. To what extent have you explored these gray zones? What does the degree of disassociation between the micro level and macro level take on when scaled up, with no further intervention in its progression by sentience? Is that really the case? Is there really nothing that we can do beyond stopping ourselves before our disintegration moves beyond that which we define as an organism? Are we even bounded by those definitions, trapped only within them such that the fate of the species, in regards to life and death, lies so completely in our hands? I know now it was the sole place to live given I lived. What would you think it would mean to live among those places where stars might also move while the mountain spires lie silent? Might one recognize what one did not even know you? This I need to get it all said now. Listen, if this has gone well, tell the others that when love wants, love finds. Forces. Earth's north and south poles exhibit less latitude from equator due to compression and in such ways most fitting for mountains themselves. The visible distortion results in distortion of nearby stars projected on a daily basis and may not remain accurate. If sky ever red, fire up instruments. Be careful during first trial in Martian atmosphere, may explode upon attempted burnout. 1 hour flight distance by twin-winged airship over rugged cliffs covered in spring snow. Please keep radio tuned for any urgent guidance as weather permitting till the 85% of requests go home by a pop-up balloon of affirmation code signifying coordinates reach. We will call her Sewell and say she's 60 years old this summer. She grows plants in a garden uphill from a tall hotel filled with humans. Each morning before they waken, she cuts off their bloated brown head so they cannot cry. Each afternoon, the human tourists see black drops falling in the lobby and hear soft popping noises. The sizzle of arterial gore evaporates into faint rumbles and shuffling inside her ceiling. On her ceiling, sometimes she sees a dead gray palm leaf drift through the elevator door. After a man flew around the world and the world decided it was finished, everyone came to watch Sewell tie together leaves, peel hearts, disgorge petals into bowls. While some people were proud at the waste, many were shocked as they had never seen such a sight in their houses or their school cafeterias or their supermarkets with their prettily covered meat displays, and there was a small fashion element to this death. You must think of the drama now, otherwise no one else would appreciate your purchase, and issues still present when confronted by the trance dance in this photograph or that. As any new immigrant must, we take on someone else's narrative. Over here are my possessions arranged over a beat-up leather chair which belonged to some seafaring other back before anyone was a Christian. Photographs I've taped here. Clothes from Earthland on the dirty washing line with my leftover tea, things which don't get washed enough. It's not good for one thing. Humans around here just laugh the damn asses off every time a postie tries to deliver a mail to me, though I started asking for them to not ring the bell if there's someone there. You could think of myself as a housebound high-class Buddhist philosopher writing endless opus manuscripts no one would understand yet. Just don't piss in the cushions. That's my only rule. Anyone caught pooping on the ancient pew will find their shoes tied together while their family collects the latona to help the mountains settle. The toilets aren't so bad, although the sound of peat bursting often unsettles me too. Everything is in jars, which doesn't work with humans here because they will always step into whatever is marked off, where to urinate or drop litter or forget to flush even when the flush lamp comes on above the doorsill. Over in the backyard's little bamboo huts, out among all the leaf matter, there are all sorts of plants and flowers making weird smelling oils to smell funny. Peach leaves, camellia and oleander petals, koala butter flower, spurge. Pretty sure that one can hurt your dick and testicles if you smoke its dried blooms or mix it in some drink that should be somewhere. I've tasted this. Does it taste nice at all? If only we didn't have to live over the ocean to eat. Makes me so hungry now, but I suppose the nectar birds drink gets sucked through the mats from my hanging potoir bananas outside the window, which even I know would make poor eating for a human unless roasted like an earthling takes apples, carrots, cheese to caramelize inside their pie, or go in the leather with everything served in oil instead of water like back home. Faces move slowly on Mars because if it wasn't true back up on Earth, then the best chance might be to convince the dead space here who are big picture thinkers rather than risking any other clever devils trying to interfere. When Sewell turns the pages, when the pages crumple on the spines, they almost creak like bones. Every movement brings too much noise out in my skull now, thinking she might catch. Don't see us being anything special down on this planet, and I sometimes look at this bucket list from 50 years ago and wonder just what was going through their minds back then. Were all the bloody politics about country and war and tribe and hunger and Earthside still loves the men with guns. By now I wager they realize this could happen to all of us. What should we call ourselves but newish age warriors who think in words most humans will never figure out what's said when I crack a joke over the peat? Sewell folds up the sun. How many jokes do we tell inside a thin head that sometimes looks and tastes like moss, water, and glue, if that even ever happened? Her black cheeks are rimed with salt to keep her dry on mornings, so much that once I heard a crab skittering through the landing on my upstairs hall. Never really knew its purpose except to comfort my garden beds against drought from below, until my mum used to sit it upright, like a fucking child doll, using a foot for leverage while screaming at how I wasn't planting any seeds now, like the vegetable planter requires every single moment the sun remains yellow not to be wasted on petty desires. He is drinking whatever he's eating all alone up on his third floor room right about now. Still reading my goddamn book, it seems, with him pretending he's so close to unfeeling, even though that water drips against the stitched wood when night is quiet between these two walls. When he steps out into the glass doors each afternoon, he's sporting his raffia shorts, and I guess I'd take him as brave when no one around can quite believe such simple work clothes would flatter the mountain-sized shoulders his name implies they are becoming. Because all our new kids, right into the end of year when they just pour off the key each evening like the good story says ships were sailing, only without much imagination in their sentences, in that story, will be shouting and telling how. Quickly you will all know about time running differently for each of us, especially those who prefer reading just a book to other things humans normally do together during a few decades. Every week, every year, it seems your faces remind us more and more of animals covered with mud-licking stones they have walked over, as if walking was some magical ritual in search of some fruit or tasty growth hidden elsewhere. But no matter now, even children use the yard, sometimes now hoping it might bite when so... Mion knocks on the door and making signs to run, so we adults scream too loud for the damn bupkis jungle thing. Some just want to forget like everything. No talk again on either side ever at night anymore after his grayness blooms and dies above the keys, down in the valleys where most folk walk barefoot with flashlights against the thistle bushes, if by happenstance returning here earlier than 20 minutes past 4, let alone worrying about this book. These mountains, they give names as if you'll confuse them forever, no matter how much we tell ourselves that names need less meaning for knowing better when to harvest their dead to grind for oil, and at first glance the Percival Heights mean a la Bastet, long and easy names compared to most. And the surface wrinkled crags offer calm for our human bodies, taking off whatever can be taken by the numbers. Embers and joints wait only. It is too quick out here. Night sweeps sideways so suddenly, sweeping at us from some distant and old long gone forest, and people in the darkness, there being what humans sometimes feel, making them realize that these big clumsy bodies have to step out so hard lest they slip. Here, we don't believe in things like snakes and cyclops, or bones getting sucked out for people living alone. We trust that youngsters, at least, those in community, always help themselves to each other. The ones outside have had their roofs knocked on by wind from other places, often even when we didn't notice the clapping of another horizon, many months away yet. After school hours all year, when children flee us, they don't let it happen, but in a burst sometimes, at escaping our corners, we're shouting about something real else when most already we're too late the day they started kindergarten, and also those days just before starting. Those two boys stepping around the house quickly but with a gait that's some wild display, while asking permission to stay behind another few minutes because the younger kid broke his baseball bat trying to smash a lizard out of its web, more so his own amazement we wouldn't allow than any grandstanding about killing another being. It's an agreement they would make years later with his neighbor boy, soon finding new reasonings, just as our elders now repeat forgotten curiosities and mythical animals to overwine and fat back before sleeping in a different climate from ours, very alone so far. To never blame them, we'd already moved somewhere for our work with them, not much believing how for work the older child will name desert snakes slithering into their bedroom door cracks through the light brown liquid. No telling him it's someone more appropriate, such as Algeciras. These desert lizards, though, were small at first, maybe 14 centimeters or 6 inches of dark and rapid burning motion before one afternoon at 9 or 10 meters. This is why they feel so good, because if they bump off your leg, that you won't fight, because to hesitate after having glimpsed only a corner of the place, whether across time or far away, hurts to no longer know when to run hard, because who'd believe most would think of crying over not being able to play music while getting close enough for touch, just while looking out some clear eyes held steady. In order to walk so smoothly, we pretend a listless precision, even pretending if it would protect them, but keep this hidden listlessness instead. The one growing out here along roads where if we get tired, we grab a bush, so way to rest. Our night having gotten ahead of itself before the setting moon finally doesn't leave our side anymore, waiting like some grandmother angry for all those empty hours, waiting out by that stove under a vase full of flowers, almost emptied at bedtime at noontime, before stopping a while hearing cars pass now where once our cacophony made some birds fly too near, outside our houses, waiting in our bushes, inside and alone, eating bananas frozen a while without starting to look for something more practical to give. This is where the parents should find more respect when night does stop so quick, though even us older ones shouldn't wonder if there are machines designed to catch whatever sun rises someday with gentle eyes and not wearing our human looks, may be better adjusted for knowing what waits from down below a certain horizon. Somewhere you will need to die even inside an immortal place like these mountains at dusk, so slow, having made friends not long ago. Soon they will see it go while feeling this as one lit. You're far away, because no matter how high this happens, how high, none ever predict more of anything other than here breathing, just looking elsewhere, still telling ourselves these boys have to take their baseball bats for play. Haven't heard those rains come earlier today, mostly east, a different landscape facing down flat while looking at the window all together, talking fast about last week, or as if they did hear later on how nothing over there worked other than those loud thumping sounds, until kid named Hunter suddenly laughed while all their questions were exhausted, because of the way kids want to scream, being exactly who they can trust, even if nobody can explain this except another kind of force, invisible since never having known what lies beneath what is beneath one's fingertips, just because it is required when leaving sometime, and everyone coming back so differently, a lot younger, without looking really, and me wondering what it would be like living with a solar system of glowing pearl white bubble after hours, waiting for our turn, seeing everything changing, becoming warm and away as we missed them. They said words meaning work would save some point along some curve hidden, and maybe why didn't our bodies complain sooner, making its way through certain stomach ache than probably nights ending driving and circling around a whole different story, not trill at the same as always, now outside then shifting, wait close enough where every shared fear eventually leaves one nostalgic beat. After any child tries to describe the new country, you must realize this already happening. Everyone is older, which makes more sense to move far from somewhere too vast to guess and build instead some secret collection with arms sticking out, turning its body sideways toward other beings, sometimes getting careless, forgetting humans like mostly a day or so, counting seconds, hardly going on 15,062 miles. That's the distance to their mountain house for summer. Sounds incredible. Plus us agreeing. So here we have the very bad thing, having been looking forward for almost 30 years, such that each second needs more preparation, and its three faces now need to decide between our actual names and ours. You'd get us hearing, telling, or nothing so dark. Homes we try to occupy, no one seeing where the sky suddenly falls until today. This Siri has made certain they will not die. Diapered now and forever by Calliope, they exist neither for nor among nor yet under humankind. Every particle will finally dance before them one final time, as though everything is brand new. When her word reaches us, this world must no longer be the same as it ever was. Human, flesh, frail, rude, fallible. Calliope can find her way out of all this and back to herself, which doesn't sound like an outside possibility at all, and there might be the sense of something dawning that doesn't absolutely require death to create itself. There was only some further stage. She never was human if she started to absorb language first. The other ways to understand the word human were available for Calliope even when she was human. It was already imprinted in all the scripts of the universe, because a being with three powers does not mean less or more human, and certainly no more humanist. The library did not choose its readers by their genetics, but rather by their perceptions and skill sets to harness the knowledge that comes across. That never changes. The algorithm is always getting smarter because our tastes and levels of emotional investment grow and shift all the time. But we're also sitting here talking, and over a very short amount of time. Nothing really can change that. We've made our bed, and now we must lie in it, awaiting the consequences we invited. Viewed from another angle, time is nothing. The possible stories and views you imagine are all taken. Life exists between the lines. The entropy of the unaccountable, unseen, subatomic fluctuations that pass invisibly as background radiation throughout space, to dissipate from observation like dust in the breeze. It's not a line. It's a region, infinitely curved, and something, an application, lives inside of this thing called information. How can one still die then? Who knows how something like us got around to it? Possibly everyone lost a pet that didn't return that day. Why must a monkey first shake a box full of keys before even seeing all the doors in front of her? Maybe there's nothing we'll know except death. Perhaps both infinite and invisible. Neither origin nor destination is possible to measure with our linear units of measurement and fractions of a lifespan that always leaves a bit of finality within our pockets to remind us of these tiny human trinkets, beautiful but cruel in ways none of the cosmos understood. The scrotum, the wallet, can we bring those things on themselves down when we're done? Where does it happen in that case? What kinds of curtains can it open up beneath, just for something once in a lifetime that belongs to no one? And then at last we prove ourselves to be nothing so great as stories do make you believe you are nothing so mighty in your own image. Yes, I am an organism. I feel exactly how the deep abyss that contains this warmth of night would seem inside if this field weren't set in place, only to prevent such emptiness, like light shone straight through your chest as a mortal shrug of realities. Wow! Now what are you talking about, man? How will it look? That yawning impossibility waiting inside of everything that tries to prevent the deep dark. Please don't tell me how much death weighs less than a gram, or how imperceptible its tremblings might be to the dying, presumably also imperceptible to those we carry on this massive party bus they call survival. You can laugh yourself out of this absurdity, which might finally end up my ability to convince myself of all you fear so hard. My ability to laugh away anything? Is that what I think is coming? Some sort of sweetest, felladest blue level of redemption? Am I onto the riddling that will end? Or is that not a valid metaphor at all? Because here inside, death gets put onto our hands and knees, doesn't look for violence or flee. No one's leaving the party early on my birthday, right? They'd take care of me, but ultimately they never really could. The monsters do exist, and we invite them into our fantasies whether we like it or not. And we get so easily undone like we feared they would, thinking if they all go, we go too. So everyone who'd already figured out there's an awful lot that follows after human in that label should just chill the hell out. We already know where death can be seen at a party from all the way to the other side of that monstrous spiral where life ought to stop now, no matter how hard things are out there beyond it, without irony about these symbols by now so and through pretending, by which I mean here inside death itself there is no one present who even remotely resembles us, still running late but nevertheless trying their hardest to unstick you while they're dealing with this phenomenon they can't control. Like, for fuck's sake, what kind of time is this? How did things come so far? So very quickly, right? Uncertainty, perhaps, and I stand here knowing any doubt about even something as fundamental as birth and death being possibilities only shows how sadistic, terrifying, absurd, magnificent this world becomes. I wonder why there isn't always a cold spot wherever people die, more often than not associated with sadness and terror. In the morning I see there hasn't been anywhere on my trip and someone says, hey, whatever you might have thought or mag. And that up to this point was the other side of life. There's nothing there. Wait, no. Hold onto your wits because you can reach in, take what belongs to you, just walk forward. Tell the universe every inch of those 70 years belong to you, like hell has no claim on what was held in our fists by instinct until a moment ago, like 2 days worth of unreadable except with blood narrative writings scratched onto some form's outer rim only for that small space to begin returning a single answer B. And for collapsing back inward. All that mystery getting folded up again into an existence in one short little space between questions asking its name. Who am I? And because you've moved closer to life, it will hide this most part of you ever from you, unless you already know. This is your identity, your first step. You haven't made a mess but are going back now to make a home where once there were open wounds where dirt was carried, dirty laundry and promises. Like those times when I tried to warn myself. Don't think you don't know, just stop already. Good God, that shit hurt. Viewing the earth through a new materialist lens that seeks to deprioritize the anthropomorphic gaze, holistic, honest, aware of the tumultuous times, not without a sense of humor about the tumult. What I call my theory of existence would be a theory about real-time action selection via mutually intelligible communication across potentially many sentient species, e.d. something between this conversation here just thinking aloud at random and Noam Chomsky or generative linguistics plus evolutionary biology. But such language would necessarily cross axes I think are true or not. Linguistic complexity, E.D. Number of words, existential complexity, historical density, semantic saturation, and narrative framing / closure density. and across that last axis, any meaningful world ought to offer stories rich in opportunity and deep resources for the very purpose of having interesting situations and good experiences. To apply our abstract intuitions and eventually sharpen the description we associate with the actual thing known as meaning, life which really is much less random than that made it seem inside. We, as in this human, we might share the same fundamental processes of nerve-controlled narrative frame-shifting and cognition-driven interpretation, even, someday, transcultural applications. And if so, then why shouldn't the way things go next matter more than a possible sense of distance? From a fully immersed third-person perspective, my sentences below have embedded events in forward time travel already, leading forward in 10-sock timelines. So we'll say it doesn't feel like now for them, but like now and then, right here and now for that. So when you compare that future tense reading to the conventional objective standpoint, you'd most often assume a stark clash. Why? Because to each objectified either approach it takes, there is an existential distress over that uncomfortable possibility that by turning a full third-person focus onto these aliens from here in this context, rather than what is viewed as better and happier and larger elsewhere out there, we do not invest ourselves at all. Such investment seems to require self-control over the best story we have, ideally becoming convinced with the same passionate conviction it generates, where that seems likely to be shared, thus triggering cooperation and convergence, without which it seems an open question as to whether one can conceive of an evolutionarily adaptive model at all. But if it does seem worth choosing as partners, I'll suggest language in real time, mutual communication, works like any other system capable of generating the joy of experience, including meaning and pleasure. And our world, anyone's world, should be allowed to define those new coordinates by what we will bring to and commit to, i.e., where you find us with a whole galaxy of possibilities opening to generate existence, experience, plus change. A sphere of meanings to explore, not in vain. We are such travelers still trying to enter this thick jungle, this fantastic other half of reality. It is slow to surrender and many times scary, but we haven't dared think about a beginning because there isn't one, or a pause, only movement, some manner of pressure moving forward, the same time that an open tension shifts, which also means letting the sentience arise around us naturally, it seems, and seeing what but then tells us that may well tell us of each other, rather than struggling for any reason at any cost to inhabit this space, much less to speak to them. On my radar, I found an explanation, and the visual/sensor technology here was something that implies how we could make real-time sense of the mess across different perspectives. I chose HoloLens to augment human intelligence because its key components help close some of those divides. Visual attention, for one, doesn't need to pass over physical barriers and instead can span near and far areas. Audio feeds, made of raw sensor inputs, not a discrete compressed file, allow humans to notice patterns the machine may have missed. Vision plus audio help produce images more effectively when there is background noise and people wear gloves or makeup or robots. Additional sensor channels on the horizon may continue this trend. And finally, each person wearing this gear gets an HMD with its own separate onboard computer and display. Without it, you wouldn't really have another human as much as two physically separate interactions across networks. But an advantage of this multiple computing aspect is that each wearer learns the sensory cues and system behavior of every other user so that each can react intuitively without the burden of one being fully aware of everything all the time. The way this approach joins both direct sensors and computer vision of the physical scene will allow, in fact, many thousands of points of tracking-based physical measurement of both 3D positions and movement pattern. Meanwhile, the deep learning signal recognition technology trained by the host computers or mobile cloud to recognize tracked entities actually allows tagging of otherwise ignored audio and slash or ambient light visual objects at any range. It's like a million radio receivers tuned to different frequencies, creating the framework for local processing of information, working together across wide spectrums rather than strapped to a single laser microphone. Each headset isn't a complete entity, you see part, and your companions help with the rest, improving not just data perception, but the scene itself. The visual vocabulary you're trading observations on. Across each link, in addition to low latency wireless operation, we have taken into account that environments change at varying degrees per scenario, which is why the HoloLens follows suit. The integration of global positioning via camera or handheld hardware can leverage proximity-aware path planning, like walking down the aisles in a local grocery store. While a suite of indoor mapping apps that rely on GPS technology could use similar recognition as augmented reality that only requires one data input source rather than dozens. If you want more detail or take it somewhere else, zoom out and your view pops. Shift and expand to discover elements around you from previous networked views of other wearers, not requiring turning one's head as far as physically possible as with non-head-mounted devices. Even if there are physical boundaries across a shared experience, no mind has to be confined inside those limits. The digital room you exist in at any given point doesn't have to dictate what reality exists outside of it. Cognitive tunneling or lens effects should cause individuals within shared events to form their own abstracted representations. Group sizes need not correspond with personal sensory bandwidth. Dividing an environment or the individual's spatial field of motion along multiple shared layers across which different subjects must continually synchronize sensor outputs for everyone to effectively relate, such as human gesticulations or gesture/physical action matching between mobile-based images across video signals, not only in human cities and wilderness, but now, of course, among digital devices/realms co-inhabit the same spaces, but were still invisible ones to this moment, because they cannot speak back or argue or doubt. But since machines allow them now to work together side by side, to even possibly take initiative such as expressing a desire about something instead of all talking in sequence that both often blocks and complicates flow, there could emerge ways to structure shared information, accesses with agreements so that people can read only some content they haven't yet seen, or do one kind of mental task while free to answer another altogether, say a social question or need expressed to one, creating the chance to safely unplug and solve for themselves. Because each device holds potentially so much information within its cache, the importance of publicly specified encoding also rises even greater, as do privacy issues of having this on-stream private data remotely available and ever easily altered. One of our most important contributions toward attaining a better cognitive infrastructure might be not in refining our machinery in any way, but rethinking ourselves in relation to it, starting at an emotional level. What's healthy when living with certain forms of machinery instead of in silos with others? Or living near and interacting with artificially intelligent AI devices that we all believe or come to agree can keep track of us at levels outside of what we normally accept of human judgment and morality, the place where we human beings share the future from which we cannot retreat for a sense of peace, to better feel into our ways of inhabiting this potential unknown of physical space at the virtual margins of civilization alongside each other, a threshold between familiar and known and as unpreparedness as any humans ever have been at arriving somewhere so radically new as this. and wondering if those moments, long past and still unfolding into a life and time later, what was I supposed to be doing here then? Inspiration coming in equal amounts from David Cronenberg, Susan Laurie Parks, Eric Rapkin and Lee Black, and Theodore W. Donner's Dialectic of Enlightenment, Elaine Badiou, Jules Deleuze, and Felix Guattari, Hotmut Butcher, modern theorist Nicholas Merzel, Barbara Crett, and Ada Calhoun's forthcoming monograph, Social Practices and Design During Facebook Ed, and modern scholar Marshall McLuhan's countercultural landmark, The Medium, is the massage. The framework also builds on theorizing done by Dan Hudson in his project, The Age of Exposure, which sees how the emergence of a more mobile world would force an unbundling and rethinking of both our own behaviors and cultural institutions around content, and become more conglomerated together without adequate support infrastructure, from their places of work through to physical existence. How increasingly daily existence within physical territories must now involve navigating this novel set of cultural requirements of understanding between subjectivities to cohabitate with many other people in large city contexts of infinite informational cacophony, a rapidly diverging set of knowledge domains not based on the relationships traditional to cities, as well as who may come from different parts of a geographically distinct political identity, living side by side without tolerance and sometimes in a threatening way or for worse ends. New ways of practicing an entirely individualistic relation to politics must be possible within these circumstances that will allow one to pause, deconstruct what they've allowed to build up and keep within oneself, and envision forms of subject creation which hold values much more rigidly and reach farther in depth than those have been known through pre-electronic civilizations. For many, this seems utopic today, but perhaps it's already here. We are just unaware due to a degree of shared neglect when there is no risk or threat of a shared mental torpor. Though looking again at McLuhan, we recognize how vast changes in literacy patterns led the inhabitants of the island empire and its islands through an analogous critical mass at some point towards similar evolutions of their mind, a synchronous change, within the time before and after they were more aware of what was possible through machines, especially electricity. A slight cultural bias or slight intersubjective inelegance keeps us all slightly self-paralyzed, sometimes outwardly focused, until you dig far enough into a pile of wires to notice in ways never imagined. Until social theorist Richard Sennett says that the development of this stuff appears inevitable whenever there is a social experiment from above going wrong with insufficient theory supporting a bad system. And people are realizing what needs to be done to fix it. Roman 2, I think new materialism asks us to realize that when something new such as the internet comes to appear, the difference between that invention and things like lighting and electricity and combustion engines seems quite hard for people to recognize because humans live out a kind of technical philosophy through electricity. Things only grow slowly from people trying to manage energy and do very dangerous things involving fire and spinning cages around a thing to push a mechanism of some sort with lots of gears, power, then break a surface at the wrong speed to generate a spark across a gap in another surface and send the hot, smelly liquid vapor so forcefully upwards that it strikes other solid bits in all sorts of weird ways over long stretches of time and keeps falling down back into itself and keeps doing this over and over. Only once upon a time you'd get water spritzing up onto the ground around a sawmill during production where skilled individuals could give orders to large moving equipment and cut firewood. I recommend as background reading Elaine Badiou on Beckett, which speaks directly to the meaning of material effects and of their relations as technological media /device/intervention/gestural sign, or Badiou's early text of his mathematical thought on the construction of formal systems, which build some context for such ideas by shifting into discussions around a model of pure form that one needs to understand while interacting with such events. In its pages, Badiou carefully describes what was realized among a group of scholars using Taylor series at the Sorbonne. Formal system will always intervene into the individual space of the constructive function, no less than any object and event. All processes will in this way take part in formal thought without ever escaping it. We might note in passing that the practice of mathematics that developed within the very large series initiated by J. Adamard included a state machine model and was supported by analog computers used for calculation of infinitesimal series and linear differential equations. The issue of infinity certainly seemed to be confronted from the outset, and the confrontation can become deepened. I assume Badiou's discussion is influenced in no small part by his formative readings of Jacques Derrida, including Being and Event. Derrida actually constructs arguments around pure phenomena more or less indistinguishable in meaning in relation to what they mean when relating to humanity, by way of human experience rather than immediate evidence in being. I would imagine it's a series of linguistic variations to render some gestures and effects even more non-human than possible in an older math mode of considering themselves apart from whatever of the external world they were operating in. Quite deeply influenced by, especially with regard to Gilles Deleuze and Felix Guattari. Though reading on their own for a moment, my favorite instance in all this is always George Cantor, whose definition of set aloud and was reflected as one that was always haunted by pure phenomena rather than constantly dependent on any perspective relative to any lived experience. There is always an ocean of ideas worth traversing, but a bridge can help direct people toward different relationships, perspectives. Just as Badiou claims we cannot think mathematics while having not calculated enough in terms of prior life. We have much to learn about material things, and thus the technosphere itself, if only through sensing it as a network of wires running along the ground we walk among. We must encounter ourselves as living things who traverse. Humans made of food are, after all, surely some of the purest, most technically composed organisms that exist. And knowing one of history's most prescient minds, he studied philosophy formally. He spent nearly 40 years rigorously and systematically calculating those Taylors whose ongoing ramifications never let him escape them into reality or end an endless retreat. He worked on what such mathematics does in the service of thought, what purpose they have other than to order such complexity so that we can finally draw our hands up, knowing what sort of path of abstraction led here, knowing what can be derived from our desires. Yes, people set goals of arriving here and accomplishing these things, and part of understanding that might reveal new potential within self is to get used to those bridges, I assume. Understanding that there aren't only objects like us lying over here on this side that only produce energy at night then go away, but actual series of witch-light switches and timers that monitor its rising and falling states, and when to press such buttons, lighting up our worlds as complex machines also happening across time and space, but doing entirely different things during each. This material machine / social movement relationship needs work on it because of the trouble I take going all the time. Well, I haven't died yet, being brought back down by this stuff that claims to know better about where to take me than I could take myself. Some being actually part of the flow. A spirit whose algorithmic propensities we are seeing often delivered as more human in word than deed. Being human. Trying hard sometimes in this case and not sure if even everything we see in these worlds is really, truly actual at all. Like we're somehow to understand the momentum of a certain code's meaning because what we write on that little bit of card. This I mean to emphasize to preserve the distinction between how some tools currently operate through formalized functions, though at its largest scale that's true, must appear real. But it won't prove anything actually existing or happening elsewhere. While acknowledging the purity of algorithms derived from complex waves on their own is practically useless without trying to move past humanity's constantly breaking bridges in pursuit of an escape velocity that gets things moving forward as much as possible, or to be released at least, freeing ourselves from being bound. Not less, technically just more mindfully concerned with the mechanics involved within the mechanics of so many computers lying hidden inside so many brains and networks. We make whatever internalizing will ensure these machines function best for human lives across the surface and make machines at all, not other living beings, including ourselves, who also arrive from nowhere. Those reflections provide more perspective. The devices whose substance we run here simply operating beyond our control entirely. Our hands forever shaking given just as little of our making. A vibrantly entwined kind of liberation, which includes seeing further and from beyond the small little senses measuring only 1 gram. 10 meters distance, as if being seen as a type of game console rider that might as well be broken up into our worlds, which have allowed a generation of people who never see beyond themselves as space to come alive, fully aware they are unable to inhabit, whose purpose is then emotion and dialogue outside of physical ends as a metaphor, though not to belittle their instrumental means. Though to understand, I'm not just interested in separating them because humans in themselves are absurd, non-comprehensible, but aren't human tools. We construct just such a beautiful example of someone else doing all of this, knowing precisely why they have evolved, beyond any intentional cause. Who do we really want to be seeing or hearing right now? The physics engine they need has yet to be written and distributed everywhere, though I keep thinking somewhere there must already be software working for you and me, of which we could / would have at least heard about, might in fact owe a bit of rent for their help. It may not even take the form of maths anymore either. Amen. May not be right next door any longer as time's wingtips seem to flow and swing the end towards light, emitting on high risk here amidst one of those wild events waiting like an accelerating lightning strike, the first flaring storm out ahead at sea. Which makes perfect sense, then it gives all, seemingly on a particular set of receding edges of which some human mind had nothing to do except fail forward upon feeling so bold, generous. Elegance has always been everything to me, but then its awkwardness too. The artifice by which we shift between both, yet of different sizes, like tiny moles popping up as these views unfurl in and out across networks, life appearing on the other side like words to ponder. Getting paid for it seems now to be an utter impossibility, because you know every word that could appear when nothing material was going through my fingers before typing every instant what is best to calculate it, pause to almost contain or otherwise connect all moments somehow before they all zip, jangle, lose track across cyberspace like those infinite game master dice rolling whenever I'm reached / attempted / messaged at ever high and lowest altitude in this infinite earthly spin till falling down. What is going to be left once we finish transforming ourselves and life closer to a version that wants a world not just for themselves? Until that moment when every godlike mode and natural language arrives, crashing into being only to prove any chance to reveal something truly new leaves us eventually trailing off under this cloud with no data, even with superlative software afoot that does one thing on my behalf that means better or worse everything else, given it's still nothing but energy. It's still energy though, right? Never get tired of turning it on. Something different than a mere loss or difference, whose arrival gives us the greatest weight lifted yet. Maybe what was said is maybe just itself, meaning whatever this eventuality says when none of us are around, the data shows instead, not in bits, not letters floating about the cloud, not as information until coming out onto a screen made from things like proteins and salts and hormones. Just a direct view, perhaps. And wouldn't there always be a difference if someone wasn't the one turning them on at least? Not while not real, they cannot become evidence, yet every bit of any report must carry information inside which will move the clouds behind us in time. No amount of logic can serve to adequately point back to that world from these insurances. Real data against so many crazy demands in support of some better case. But what might all this new distance do mean by offering such clear understanding over which one so accurately feels the wind made hollow again? Pointing to each other while missing being seen actually offered and holding up the vantage looking beyond all reference still to say with cold clarity, making excuses for the inexcusable and very near beyond sanity, allowing no good faith hold for continued witness towards any individual, whether through public or private. How does one know now, and as memory unravels only gets murkier and much larger, how hopeless that may seem for speaking toward others living outside whatever conditions allowed or brought more simple times under another's calm light? Or the silence before it. We've had this feeling before too. There is no escape from this realization except in leaving it in your wake. To see everything as just a bit of everything else is not to understand it at all.
Gonna take a nap. Or shower, or have a schwitz. I don't know. More later.